it's MK and I am here with another Shimmerz Paints design team layout for you guys. I'm also playing along with the prompts from Scraptember 2023, and today's prompt is to use a sketch. So this is the sketch that I picked out for today. The paints I'm using is Inkling's Penny for Your Thoughts and Shimmerz So Sappy. I also pulled out several sprays, spritz in Sapphire, as well as colorings in Ahoy Métis. I also have two more spritz for you guys. Oh, three, I apologize. One is Spritz Pipe Cream, Vibes in Rip Van Periwinkle, and then I pulled out a color splash in Penny in Your Pocket. So I'm going to be pulling out these paints, and I plan on making my own pattern paper. I also have this fiber that was gifted to me by a viewer here on YouTube, so thank you very much. I have some doilies that have been in my stash forever. These ones came from close to my heart, and this one came from my mom. So I've got those I would like to use up. I've got this fiber. I think it's a chiffon, I think is how you pronounce it. That was in the February monthly box. And then these two film strips came in the July monthly box, both from SAR, which is some assemblage required. I have this strip that was laying on my desk from an Asuka paper. It's just a branding strip, several scraps of white cardstock left over from my cut file month. I picked out my title. Now these two alpha sets, one is the Vicky Bouton Decoupage set. So there is that one there. It came with the Vicky Bouton, I believe, Storyteller. And then I've got these DIY thickers in Brie. Now they're super uber old, but I like the fact that they're canvas, so they've got a little bit of texture. There's my two photos of me axe throwing. I have this vellum piece from Stampin' Up! That I'm going to place. I thought I was going to place it on top of this Elizabeth Craft Designs paper, but in the end, I decided I did not want to cover up all that beautifulness. I've been wanting to use this paper, but I just don't think I'm going to end up covering all that gorgeousness up. I can't do it. All right, and then I pulled out my texture box. Now this box is full of bubble wrap. It's full of unique packaging that I can get a good impression from. It's full of netting from like oranges. It's got my sponges in coarse and fine to make circles. I've also got this lid that is from tea. So I use that as a giant circle. It's got my stippling brush in there. Lots and lots of things in here for me to make different textures or different designs on paper while making my own pattern paper. Now, one of the things I was looking for is I thought that I had a whole bunch of washi rolls and things like that to actually make circles, but I'd already had them taken out and put in front of me on the desk. Silly goose. All right, so here's the sketch. It's September sketch number 2. I believe this is from the Dusty Attic website. Please, I will check to make sure for sure. But I plan on flipping the sketch over, and then on top of the sketch, it said that it was SBC Scrapbook Challenges. So I'm not really sure, but I could have sworn I found it on the Dusty Attic blog is where I thought that I had found that. But I will double check to make sure. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of these scraps of white cardstock, and one I'm going to double map my photo. So I'm going to keep one at a white. Sorry. And then the other one I am going to actually color, so that way I have 2 colorful photo mats. So I'm just trying to figure out my sizing because I'm limited to what I have as far as what I've chosen for white cardstock. So here is my second piece. And then of course I still don't cut it correctly. I get my smaller photos measurements wrong, and then later I have to trim it down even more. So I don't know what happened. I was just checking to make sure that I did them correctly, and then I still managed to do this. It's weird. So I don't know how I do that. I'm going to watch myself and see. See, I just cut those both. Okay, I see what I did. And then I said that it was good. But I come back to it later as soon as my second mat dries. So I'm going to go ahead and mount my photos on the white just so that way I don't have multiple little pieces of paper floating around on my desk. I'm going to pull out my spray box, and the first thing I'm going to use is the Spritz in Sapphire. So I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm going to pull out Ahoy Matey and spray it all down, and then I'm going to take Periwinkle and splatter it around. I did all of this because I wanted a cool little texture, thinking that I was going to have 1/8 of an inch. I don't end up having 1/8 of an inch because I cut them down 1/8 of an inch. So I only have 1/16 of an inch showing, but the thought was there, and that is the reason why I really wanted all of the different layers of blue, is so that way I had that texture going on. Now I am using that Elizabeth Crafts as my inspiration piece. That's where I picked out my colors and everything for this layout, plus the fact that I'm wearing a black shirt and the board that I'm throwing at is brown. So there's not a whole lot of color except that my shirt has kind of a blue hue to it. Now, the first thing I did was take So Sappy. No, I did not. I took the penny in your pocket and I painted my piece of paper. That way I had a nice solid brown to play with. And then I thought I was going to take Periwinkle and spray it. And then I realized, I don't want it to get in between my bubbles. So I'm just taking the side of the tube of the spray and rubbing it across my bubbles so I can get a bubble effect. Now I didn't want it to be, bubbly all the way over. I wanted it to look like a mixed media piece. And then I'm going to trim it down just a little bit, so that way I, just as a solid piece. And I was thinking I was going for 3 inches, but then I realized I forgot to cut the branding strip part off. So there is my piece. I'm going to let it dry for just a second, and I'm going to work on my second piece. My second piece is going to get a base of this pipe cream. I love the name of that one. So I went ahead and I sprayed it all over. I tipped the bottle just a little bit too much, so I had those big blobs, but I was okay with that. And then I'm going to splatter with Penny in Your Pocket, which is the color splash, and let that dry just for a moment. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab out this packaging that is hexagon shaped. And so I am going to go ahead and take Ahoy Matey and paint using the tube again, all of those little hexagons, and then I'm going to go through with my little finger and push down on each one of them as if it was a stamp. Now I'm not fully covering every single hexagon. I didn't want like totally perfect solid images. Again, I'm looking for that distress ink or distress look, so that way I can figure it out later, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I don't really know. I just really wanted it to look distressed when I get around to, making my own pattern papers. I don't like perfects, in all honesty. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this. Now, I'm not really sure exactly what, actually, I think this is Periwinkle and the other one was Ahoy Matey, I think. Because the Periwinkle one, I needed to re-stir it up, so I was getting a lot of the ink coming out. But I think this is, nope, that one's Ahoy Matey. I lied. I apologize. We'll just keep moving on. I forgot after a while to start mixing my bottles up. And so when I was pulling out the tube, I was pulling out the sparkle at the bottom. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but that's what I keep trying to scrape off of my hexagons is all that ink and paint and stuff. So yeah, I just kept, and there's where I remembered to actually shake it up. It just took me a minute. I'm a little slow, you guys. It takes me a minute to realize. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the rest to fill in the gaps. I want hexagons all over the place. I didn't want it to look like basically was using a stamp. So I save weird packaging for stuff like this, you guys. I've collected it over the years. I don't even remember what was in this specific packaging in to make this hexagon shape. I have no idea. But I do end up wiping it off, saving it, and putting it back into my texture bin. Okay, so now I'm taking periwinkle on this piece of paper and doing some splatters. I didn't like how I had a bunch of blank spots. So I thought, okay, I'll have my circles and splatters. And then I'm going to take my So Sappy and splatter it all over the layout, or all over this pattern paper as well. And I really like how that looks. So Sappy is my favorite. I am almost out of the bottle, but it is one of my favorite colors. All right, so for this one, it felt like it was missing something. So what I'm going to do is take my Moji pen and go ahead and do some doodling around each hexagon. I don't make you watch me do the whole thing because I go through, because of my sketchy lines, I want them to make it look like it was meant to be imperfect. So I go through all of my sketchy lines 2 or 3 times to make it, you know, give it that effect. And then I'm going to trim it down, and that is my paper. I'm going to take my edge distressing tool. Now these are very thick pieces of cardstock, so I'm just going to rough up the edges ever so slightly. I don't want to make it too, if I scuff it up too much, I start tearing it in places I don't want to tear it. So I'm going to go ahead and scuff up both sides of those papers, and then take my Ahoy Matey again with the tube and paint my canvas lettering. And it's going to soak up the paint and be beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love the way that this dries. Now it looks very, very dark, for the word very. It looks really dark right now, but once the canvas actually soaks up the paint, it is a beautiful blue. It really is. So just going to go ahead, and the thing about it is I am able to get around the edges and into every little tiny thing using this applicator instead of spraying, when spray would have just made a complete mess. So I like this applicator application. Moved a couple of my letters out of the way just because I did not want them to get colored. And then I'm going to take a dark brown ink, distress ink, and really scuff up those edges and darken them. I just felt like the paper was missing something, and I think it was that white edge that I scuffed up and brought to the front. With my tool, I think it brought all that white, even though none of my pieces of paper are white, and that's what was throwing me off. So I'm just going to scuff it up. Now I do end up throwing away this applicator because, like I said, this paper was very, very stiff. It's a basil coconut swirl paper that I am using, and I am going to town seriously about distressing the ink on or about this distressing the edges on these pieces of paper because they are really super thick papers, and so it takes a lot of elbow grease per se, to get the effect that I was going for and cover up all that white. And by the time I'm done, I absolutely love my handmade paper. I really, really do. All right, so here are my photo mats, and I'm going to go ahead and place my photos down now that they are dry. And this is where I realized that I didn't have as much as I thought I wanted to. And then, of course, when I tried to go and put my smaller photo down, that is when I realized that I cut them wrong and I had to go back to the trimmer. So I completely cut that out. All right. I also switched out my Elizabeth Craft paper for just a plain dark blue. I don't even know what blue this is anymore from close to my heart. I think it's outdoor denim, but I could be wrong. It could be called sapphire, in all honesty. I don't know. But I switched it out because the vellum piece is really going to cover up most of it, and I really do like how this dark blue piece looks in the end. The reason why I also chose these colors and the Elizabeth Craft piece of paper is because of the fact that all of my other photos in this series of pictures are using the Garage Minte collection, and so it's a brown and blue mix. So I wanted to stick with that, but because I don't have any more of the Minte collection, I needed to pull something else, and the perfect solution was to make my own pattern paper, which I absolutely love in the end. It matches and coordinates beautifully, which I miss doing. I used to do that a lot. So here's where I'm trying to decide. I want all my fibers to show. I'm using that chiffon as a border across my other pattern paper. I love how this looks together. I really do. And I am using tear and tape for the majority of all of this because of I don't want to say the warpiness, but because of the curled bits of the paper. And so the tear and tape is definitely going to help secure everything down and keep it pretty flat. All right, so off camera, I went ahead and taped everything down. I did not want you guys to watch that. That was so boring. And sitting next to me, I have this 49 and Market acetate embellishment sheet. And the only thing that's left is these gears. There's 3 gears, and then there is some wishing bubbles, what they call wishing bubbles left on there. And I just thought that I need more than just these. They're not butterflies. These doily pieces. And so I just picked them up. Didn't realize I was going to use them until they were already on my page, basically, because I really thought that I pulled out everything. And then the last thing that I am going to add, well, actually, I'm going to rip the edges really quickly of my vellum piece because I want to be able to add that really super thick doily. I just don't know how yet. Excuse me. The frog is back. Sorry about that, you guys. So I am just very gently taking my fingernail and ripping out little pieces. This vellum is so stiff from Stampin' Up. It is phenomenal, in all honesty. So I have to be careful or it also rips where I don't want it to. I went ahead and laid out my title and I had to glue down every little piece. So I did not make you guys watch me do that as well. Look at how well that word very blends in with my sweatshirt. That's awesome. I'm going to take a different distress tool because like I said, the other one was toast. And I'm taking this one around my vellum just to darken up the edges. I think it adds a great effect when I add it to that brown or that blue piece of paper in the background, just like so. Actually, I should have checked to see what my other layout was on the other side to see if I could just use that, but it's okay. This works for sure because then what I end up doing is taking my doily and I'm actually going to cut it apart. Sorry, Mom. So that way I just have little pieces sticking out from the underside of my vellum. So I was just checking to see if 2 was okay or if I needed to cut 3 in that other section. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting around it because I thought I was going to add a 3rd doily into my clusters, but I end up not liking it. And then I was going to see about using this piece, seeing how it almost matches as well. And again, I did not end up liking either one of those pieces. So they don't make it on my layout. This is it. I'm going to go ahead and use some more score tape to glue my background piece, my vellum piece to my layout. Also used glue dots to secure my doily pieces. So yeah. And I'm just adding the tear and tape where my pieces are, that way it doesn't show through the vellum. So, and I'll show you how I plan on securing the upper portion of the vellum here in a minute. All right, so I'm going to go and pull out my sewing machine. And I haven't quite figured out how to share with you guys how I'm sewing, like the stitching part of it. So here's a top view. And what I'm doing is I sewed one direction, then I pushed my back button, and then I sewed it back again. And then I'm going to do it to the same thing. However, this one slightly moved my vellum. I did not hold my vellum. And so I've got a little bump, but it's not too bad and it still lays a little flat. Right there's my little bump. but I'm perfectly okay with that. So here's a close-up of all the papers. I absolutely love how this turned out. I had so much inspiration bringing it all together. I really like how it turned out. And there's my stitching to hold the doilies in place. And that is my layout for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really, truly appreciated you guys watching me make my own paper. I do enjoy doing this process. That was my scrapbook process in the very beginning, back in the 90s. Where the pattern paper was back in the 90s was null and void in my area. And so I relied on stamps and ink a lot. So I miss doing this type of thing. All right, Tony in TN, thank you so much for sharing your sketch with the world. Be sure to check out the Shimmerz Paint website to see all the new colors. They come out with a new color kit every month. They come out with gorgeous colors, you guys. I am in love. Also, too, if you are going to check out some of those colors, don't forget to put put my name in the comment section at checkout, so that way you get a free gifty from Shimmerz Paints. And that is it for today. Also, don't forget to check out the Scrappy Sisters and Laura Alberts to see what they are doing for Scraptember today on the 3rd of September. All right, thanks a lot, you guys, and I'll check y'all later. Bye.